Thank you for such a lovely introduction. It's so amazing to be here and see all you guys out here early in the morning. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here and talk to you today. Yeah, so my name's Nicole Velik, my company is the Ideas Bodega. If anyone is wondering what a bodega is, it's that. It's this divey little corner store delis that you find in the 5 boroughs of New York City. And I used to live there, so I got quite inspired by New York culture. So yeah, I'm an innovation and creativity facilitator and trainer, and a lot of the time what I'm doing is going around to companies, training them in idea generation, creativity, and facilitating lots of different things, whether it's a new business pitch or a new product development. So that's me, that's what I do. So today, obviously the theme is crossover, and as soon as I heard that theme, I thought, oh, there's something that I'd like to speak about that I'm really passionate about. And so I'm talking about crossing over from being an employee to a creative leader. How to manage and inspire creativity in the workplace. So something that I find really interesting is that what happens generally is we start our careers and we're in a company and we're just an employee, and one day we find ourselves in a management position or we're a leader. And we're not trained how to do that a lot of the time, and especially we're not trained how to manage creativity. So leadership is one thing, leading for creativity is a whole other ballgame. And so that's what I'm going to do, talk to you guys about that today. I want to start by showing you some really great pictures, just some offices around the world. So this is the Zurich Google office, and there's these really cool kind of swinging chairs here. Next we have Googleplex in the Bay Area, San Francisco. They've got a dinosaur in their garden. Thought that was pretty cool. Next we have another Google office, and I don't actually know what this guy's doing, but it kind of looks like he's at the dentist, but it looks like he's having fun, whatever he's doing, and that's again in another Google office. This one is a little bit ridiculous. We've got these people lying in these amazing kind of chairs looking into fish tanks, and if you see over here, there's even a guy in a bath. So that's pretty cool. Another Google office that has a rock climbing wall internally. I think that'd be great, to be able to have a little, midday rock climb in the office. Here we have another one. I assume they call this the sky room because we've got a helicopter and a hot air balloon, and if you see there's even an alien. That's pretty cool. Here, this is the Facebook headquarters, and you've got the deck set up for a party, you've got a skateboard ramp out the back, you've got some guys on the skateboards. This again is the Zurich office of Google, and you've got a slippery slide that goes all the way from the top of the building down to the bottom, which that'd be pretty fun, not having to take the stairs. Now this one again takes it to another level where we've got some people in an office that's set behind a waterfall. I would love to sit behind a waterfall. Don't you think that'd be fun? It'd just be beautiful and tranquil all day. But as always, Apple kind of takes it to the extreme. This is the plan for their headquarters that are being built at the moment in Cupertino, and it's meant to be due next year, so 2015, and it kind of looks like a spaceship that's going to launch up into the sky. So it's this amazing round building. So, I've got good news and bad news. So the bad news is that we don't work there. Does anyone work? Is anyone here at a crazy office like that? No? So that's the bad news. I would love to work somewhere like that. But the good news is that you don't need a slippery slide going from the top floor down to the bottom floor in order to have a really creative environment, an environment where ideas and creativity flourish. It's not necessary. So today, I'm going to tell you guys what individual leaders can do to actually inspire and nurture a creative environment and a creative team. I'm talking to two types of people. So I'm talking to people here who are currently leaders, so you currently manage people. I'm also talking to future leaders. So some of you guys are not leaders or you're not managing people at the moment, but it's inevitable that as you progress in your career, you will be. I'm also talking to people that may have gone out and started their own thing, and as your business grows, you're going to hire people. And so I hope that today I'm going to teach you a whole lot of different, just tell you about some different stories and different examples that are happening around the world. And my hope is that it can inspire you in some way. If you're a leader currently, then maybe you can take on some of these things. Some of them you may be able to take on, some of them might be too difficult. But it might even inspire a thought of something that you can do in your organisation to be a little bit more creative. I'm going to talk about attitudes and beliefs that leaders need to have in order to have a creative environment, some interventions that other companies are doing to inspire creativity, and then the third one is changing habits. So, we all know that people have habits, but have you ever thought that organisations have habits too? So, organisations do have habits, and some are good, some are not so good. And I know two things about habits. So with people, it takes about 28 days to start a new habit. Have you guys heard that? Yeah. So think about an organisation. If you wanted to have a new habit in an organisation, it's probably going to take about 6 months, possibly even a year, right, to get a new habit going. The other thing I know about habits is normally you have to get a new habit, you have to replace an old one. So as I'm talking, you might think, what are some bad habits that we have in our organisation, and how can I actually create a new habit that might actually inspire creativity? All right, the first belief that leaders absolutely need to have in order to have a creative environment, they need to believe that creativity is everyone's business. It is not reserved for those in the creative department, for designers, for architects, for marketing people. Creativity really is every single person's job. So the first belief a leader needs to have is that everyone is creative and that it's actually their job to be creative. In today's world, if you're doing any task that's kind of mechanical these days, can be outsourced overseas for cheaper and sometimes better quality as well. Creativity and our ideas are the only real competitive advantage we have at the moment. So it's so crucial for leaders to be expecting creativity from every single person in every department, no matter what they do in their role. And everyone should see themselves as creative and contributing creatively. I want to talk to you about a study that was done. It was called the Divergent Thinking Study. And for those of you that are not familiar with the term divergent thinking, I'll read it to you. So divergent thinking is a thought process used to generate creative ideas by exploring many possible solutions. It typically occurs in a spontaneous, free-flowing manner. Many possible solutions are explored in a short amount of time and unexpected connections are made. So it's that part of the brain where we're allowing that lateral thinking. So in this study, they wanted to know at what age people were at their divergent thinking best, okay? So they thought, all right, well, let's start with 5-year-olds. So they started with 5-year-olds and they studied them closely, a really huge group of probably like over 1,000, I think, and they studied them closely. They asked them a lot of questions, but they didn't ask them questions that had a yes or a no, right or wrong answer. They asked them the kind of questions that really tested that lateral thinking part of the brain. For example, something like, what are the similarities between a pineapple and a cucumber, right? So really kind of random questions like that. This was a longitudinal study. So what that means is they studied the same kids 5 years later, and then the same kids 5 years later after that, so now they're 15. At the same time as they were studying these kids, they had a control group of adults. The results are absolutely astounding. So at age 5, 98% of those children were at genius level when it came to their divergent thinking capability. 5 years later, the same kids, it dropped down to 30%, and another 5 years, that halved to 15%. But the crazy thing is the adult group, only 2% of that adult group, right, were there. So, what does that tell us? Well, it tells us this. We are all born with this incredible, creative genius ability, okay? And then, it really begs a question. And the question that it asks, that we have to ask ourselves is, what the hell is going on? If we are all born with this incredible, creative genius, and then we grow up where people walk around saying, I don't have a creative bone in my body, what the hell is going on? So I was recently speaking with a friend and a mentor of mine. Some of you may know him, Richard Salman. He's an amazing strategist. And I was having this conversation with him, and I said, what is it? We're talking about what's going on. And he said to me, It's the Logical Song by Supertramp. And I kind of knew the song, but I didn't really know it that well. And so I went home and I Googled the lyrics, and I read the lyrics of that song, and I was like, yes, that's exactly what's going on. So I thought, this is Creative Mornings, and I thought I should do something maybe a little bit creative. So I'm actually going to play the song for you guys. So yeah, bear with me. Switching hats. All right. Oh, sorry, yeah, Hannah. Thank you, darling. Hannah's reminding me that I actually have the words here. So you guys can, we can make this karaoke. You can sing along with me. But listen, as I'm playing this, listen out for the words, and you'll see what I'm talking about with what happens to us as children. All right, here we go. When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful, a miracle. Oh, it was beautiful, magical. And the birds in the trees, well, they'd be singing so happily, joyfully, oh, playfully, watching me. But then they sent me away to teach me how to be sensible, logical, oh, responsible, practical. And they showed me a world where I could be so dependable, clinical, intellectual, cynical. There are times when all the world's asleep, the questions run too deep for such a simple man. Won't you please tell me what we've learned? I know it sounds absurd. Please tell me who I am. Watch what you say, or they'll be calling you a radical, a liberal, oh, fanatical, criminal. Won't you sign up your name? We'd like to feel you're acceptable, respectable, oh, presentable, a vegetable. There are times when all the world's asleep, the questions run too deep for such a simple man. Won't you please tell me what we've learned? I know it sounds absurd. Please tell me who I am. Thank you. So yeah. Yeah, so if you see, in the song, it's exactly what's going on. We start off as these beautiful, amazing beings, these children, and then we get sent away and we're taught how to be logical and cynical, intellectual and, clinical. So that's kind of what's going on. So as a leader, what do you do about that, right? What do you do when you've got all these people running around in your workplace that think they're not creative, and you need creativity, you need innovation? So you've got to nurture their neoteny. So neoteny is a beautiful word, and it's basically the childlike quality in all of us. So I hope that some of the examples I'm going to share with you now will actually inspire you to nurture people's neoteny. Okay, so I once heard this, and it really rang true for me, that in order to be happy in our jobs, we need two things. We need contribution and recognition, okay? We need to be contributing ourselves, and we need to be recognized for that. And then you got happiness in your job, and that relates to me, I think. I want to start by talking about contribution. So I speak to a lot of HR people, and they tell me that the number one reason why people leave an organization is because they didn't feel like they could contribute, especially juniors, right? The easiest way to contribute in your organization is with your creativity and your ideas, okay? Now the problem is, a lot of the time what's going on are there are no platforms for people to bring their ideas to. There's nowhere for people to actually say, hey, here are my ideas. I've got a great idea. And I promise you there are people running around your organization with great ideas and you don't know about it if you're the leader, the manager. So I want to talk about 5 examples, 5 ways that leaders can provide platforms for creative ideas. So I've done a lot of interviews and I've spoken to different people, and here are just some examples I want to share with you guys. I want to start by talking about Nobby. So David Nobain, or otherwise known as Nobby, is a creative director. This is him. He was recently on Recipe to Riches. I don't know if you guys know that show. I haven't seen it, but yeah. So years ago, I was working at Saatchi & Saatchi here in Sydney, and Nobby became our creative director of the agency. The day he started, he wanted to do something big, and so he said, okay, I want every single person in this organisation to come up with a big idea, right? And you know, for anything, there's no brief, just come up with a really big idea, and next week everyone's going to present their ideas. So everyone went away and created these ideas, and a week later, we presented the ideas, and it was amazing. It was absolutely astounding, the creative ideas that were coming from the people in the HR department and the finance department and even the guys that sat on reception. And the person that won was an account manager, not even a creative. And it sounds like such a cliche when you hear that great ideas come from anyone and everywhere, but that really rung true for me. I started inviting those HR people into my brainstorms, and they were fantastic, you know. So that one little thing that he didn't cost anything, but something shifted, for me anyway. In that moment, after then on, at my time at Saatchi's, something shifted. So that was such a simple thing. Nobby now works at Droga 5, and he's head of that agency. And at Droga 5, they've done something else really cool, where they have the D5 Academy. And as part of the D5 Academy, every year they have a grant. So it's for $10,000. It's a grant for an idea that they believe in. It's not an idea for a client necessarily, but someone on staff anyone can come up with an idea, and if they believe in the idea, they'll make it happen. It's pretty cool. So a few years ago, someone came up with this beautiful idea to do Creative Spirit. Creative Spirit is a fantastic program, and the idea is that creative agencies or creative companies hire people with learning difficulties and bring them into the workplace. So it's a really great program on so many levels. And the people at Droga 5 said, well, difference is our currency. What could be more creative than being different? So for them, they were the pilot, and it's been fantastic for them. There's now, I think, over 70 organisations in the world actually doing this. And so they haven't, I don't know if he still works there, but when I was there last year, this was Lloyd, and Lloyd is the Executive Hydration Officer, and he's so lovely, but he does so much more than just give everyone the tea and coffee. His energy in the agency is fantastic. Creatives told me that they actually go and show him their work, and he's got a really interesting spin on things. He looks at things differently. So it's such an amazing program. So I really love that. And when I was actually at the Droga offices last year, I was really lucky. Oh, so anyway, they said, sorry, backtrack a bit. They said that, so because Lloyd has done such a great job at delivering all the teas and coffees, they want to give him his own cafe. So when I was there last year, they were having a competition where, again, every single person in the agency had to come up with a sign. Is anyone here from Droga 5? No? Okay. So they had to come up with a sign. And everyone in the agency came up with a sign, and I was lucky to see all these signs laid out here. And the sign was for Lloyd's Cafe. So I just want to show you some of my favourites. So I thought that was beautiful. By the way, these were signs coming from people not just in the creative department, from all over the company. I thought that one was really great. And this is my favourite one. Isn't that amazing? And I don't know who won, but they couldn't tell me because they hadn't announced it yet. But they told me that it wasn't a creative who actually won the idea. So I just thought that was amazing. I'm going to now tell you about something else you can do as a leader that is way more simple. And it's really just what I call an open door policy. So a friend of mine works at the Human Rights Commission. And she told me that there's a boss that they have who's a really, really busy human rights lawyer who thought he was very approachable. But in actual fact, you know, he's a really busy, important person, and the staff didn't feel comfortable going to him and sharing their ideas. When he found that out, he thought, wow, that's terrible. I didn't realise that. So what he did was create this open door policy. Every Monday and every Thursday from 9 till 10 a.m, he's in his office with an open door, and that's a time for them to actually go to him and show him their ideas. So that's something so simple that you guys could take on, because so many people have great ideas, and a lot of the time you might think as a leader that you're approachable, but if you're really busy, then often people don't want to bother you. MLC do something really cool called waste workshops, and I love this example because it doesn't come from a creative as such, like a creative company. So MLC obviously being a financial institution. So a waste workshop is their kind of spin on doing a brainstorm. They don't believe in blue sky thinking. They think blue sky thinking is a bit of a waste of time. And so what they do are these waste workshops, and everyone comes together a few times a year. And the first part of this meeting is everyone kind of bitching and complaining about things in their job they don't like, right? So they just get it all out, yeah? And then, so they get it all out. And then what happens is they swap teams. So then one team will work on another team's problems and try to solve them. So they're getting that fantastic like external person's point of view. And one year something really amazing happened where one team of analysts, complained about the fact that they had to fill in these spreadsheets every morning. So what was happening is they'd come to work and they would have to erase yesterday's information on the spreadsheet, erase all the different information they'd put in the day before, and then they'd have to put in the new day's information. And so the new team looking at this were like, why are you doing that? Why don't you just have a template? Sounds pretty obvious. But that's how it had been done for over 10 years. So no one had actually thought to change it. That was taking them 17 minutes per day to erase the information. That doesn't sound like a lot of time, 17 minutes. When you add that up cumulatively over a year, it's about 76.3 hours. Can you imagine? 73.6 hours. Ooh. Doing that. So yeah, big waste of time. So that's really fantastic. Iris is a digital agency here in Sydney. They do something really cool. It's called, wow, where's my microphone gone? Okay, it's, hello. Okay, that's better. It's called Project 72. So what they do is every time they get a new brief in the agency, they put the brief out on their intranet, and anyone in the offices, the Iris offices around the world, can respond to the brief with a creative idea. But they've got 72 hours, right? And there's a website where the time's ticking down. So last year they were pitching for the City of Sydney kind of activation, and they put the brief up. And you would think that someone in the Sydney office would win, their idea would be the best, because they know Sydney, but actually research has shown that distance to a problem, distance to a challenge, actually is really great for creativity. So the person whose idea was the best actually came from the Dubai office, and that idea ended up winning them the pitch. They then flew that guy, and might I add, he wasn't creative, I think he's an account director. They flew him to Sydney to manage that project, which I just think is so fantastic. All right, so they were ways that you can contribute your ideas, and there's so many more, but they're just a few examples that I loved. Now I want to talk about recognition. It's really important to recognise people at work. We need to be recognised, but we need to be recognised also for our creativity. And there's one way that you definitely should not recognise people for their creativity, and that is with a financial incentive. So it sounds really counterintuitive because in our world, we're very much focused on bonuses and, getting pay rises, and we're often motivated by that. But research has shown that if a task requires anything more than just mechanical thought, so once the task has any kind of creative thinking involved, then what happens is by offering a financial incentive, actually makes the person perform less. So it's pretty amazing. And I'm going to give you a really bad example of how this was done that someone shared with me. So an agency in Sydney have a staff member of the year. And every year they give $5,000 to the person who they call staff member of the year. And someone I know that works at that agency said every year it's the person who puts in the most time, the most sweat, the person that stays till midnight every night, that's the person that wins the award. And the person I was speaking to that worked there said, I realised that if I was ever going to win that award, I would have to give up my life, and I wasn't willing to do that. So the person that won last year, she won based on the fact that she was there till midnight every night and put in blood, sweat and tears. A week after winning the award, she quit because she burnt out. So, what that message sends to their staff is that we're not recognising you for your creativity and being smart. We're recognising you for giving up your life, for working really long hours, and that's such a backwards, mentality. I now want to give you an example of a really fantastic way to recognise creativity. The last agency that I worked at in New York is called Bond & Partners. It's a fantastic agency, and it's run by these very, very eccentric New Yorkers. And so what they do is twice a year they have an awards ceremony where all the staff come together, and it's called the Golden Bagel. And what happens at this ceremony is everyone comes and they reward the best creative ideas and the best teams that came up with the best ideas that quarter or that half year. And the prize is a crusty bagel. So it's a dried up bagel, it's dipped in gold paint, and then a red ribbon is put around the bagel, and that's the award. And everyone really, really wants one. Why? Why do they want a crusty, mouldy old bagel? Because it's that public recognition and it feels so good. It's also a great cultural fit, it's a real New York thing and everyone just loves them. And you get that public recognition and you walk around the Kirschenbaum offices and you see these mouldy bagels that are hanging off people's desks with pride, and they've been there for so many years. So I just think that's such a fantastic example. It doesn't cost anything, and so hopefully that could inspire you guys a little bit. So Gray, the agency Gray in New York, took this to another level, and they have the Heroic Failure Award. And last year's winner in 2013 was Amanda Zoltan. She's an account supervisor. And Amanda and her team were pitching for a brand of kitty litter. And the pitch was going really well, and they're in the boardroom with the client. And at the end of the pitch, Amanda said, "And we believe in your product so much, and we think it really works, that the whole time during this meeting there's actually kitty litter under the table and no one even noticed. That's how good it works." And everyone looked under, and there was fresh cat poo in the kitty litter under the boardroom table, but no one had noticed, right? So she was trying to prove a point of how good the product was. And one of the client team just was disgusted, ran out of the room. Someone described it as shock and awe. Some people laughed because it was a poo joke, but at the end of the day, the people that worked, and they didn't win, but they thought, that was so heroic, and we want people in our agency to know that that's the kind of behaviour that we want to reward. It's not always about winning, but it's gutsy, so I just love that example. The next thing I want to talk about is feedback. This is crucial. The problem with feedback is that in an organisation, generally feedback only happens once or twice a year. It's a yearly or a half-yearly review. But the thing is, we live in a feedback culture. You put something on Facebook or Twitter and instantly you've got a like. On Instagram, instantly you've got someone liking it. If someone hasn't liked a photo within a minute, you kind of go, what's going on? What have I done? And you send a text message, you expect a response right away. So we live in this feedback culture, yet in the workplace we're not giving feedback nearly enough that we should be, and especially for creativity. So, when people are coming up with creative work, they're very emotionally attached to that, and if they don't get that feedback, it can be very, very disheartening. I know someone who's a promo producer, and she said that in her workplace, what's happened a few times is she'll pitch her idea, and there'll be a few teams pitching, and her boss doesn't even tell her if she wins or not, and she only finds out that she didn't win because she overhears another team talking about doing the project. And she said it's completely disheartening, and it happens time and time again. And so I just think it's so important to, just give people feedback, but also not make it subjective. Like, if you're going to give people feedback, it has to be done straight away. There needs to be a process for feedback. It's just really, really important that we give people that feedback and, align the feedback to the objectives. So we didn't go with your idea because, this is what we were looking for this time. It's really important to manage that. I want to talk about this IBM Global CEO study. So IBM do these studies every now and again where they study hundreds or thousands of CEOs around the world, and they ask them a lot of questions. The 2010 study showed that creativity was selected as the most crucial factor for future success over the next 5 years. So you can see creativity was 60%, so far outweighed the other factors. I find this really ironic because all these CEOs, leaders are saying creativity is so important, yet we don't have the time for it. Would you agree? We're just pumping work out. There's very rarely time set aside for creativity. And recently this year, this picture has been coming up on my Instagram feed quite a lot. And it says, you have as many hours in the day as Beyonce, so you make them count. And you know, when I saw that, I laughed because when I was young, I heard that quote, but it was, you have as many hours in the day as Nelson Mandela or Gandhi. But for this generation, it's Beyonce, so that's okay. So I want to talk about time, because the thing is that if we're all saying creativity is so important, yet there's no time, there are ways that we can carve out that time. And so I want to give you 5 examples of how you can actually carve out time for creativity. So the first one of my clients realised that creativity and brainstorming was so important, but they didn't have time to do it. So they've created Brainstorm Breakfast, which is such a fantastic idea. So every Tuesday morning, the staff come in early, and they come in early, they do Brainstorm Breakfast, they put on a beautiful spread for everybody, and they proactively choose a challenge for that Tuesday morning. And I just think that's just fantastic. An agency in New York have a no meeting zone, and this is amazing. Every Wednesday from 9 till 12, no one is allowed to set a meeting because they realise that creativity needs time and space. Creativity needs a beginning and an end. And so Wednesday morning is a time where you can't set meetings, and it's time for people to actually sit, get stuff done, think creatively, and I just think that's just fantastic. And they've told their clients as well. So talking about habits, the clients all know that agency, that's how they operate, no meetings on a Wednesday. An Australian software company, Atlassian, have something really cool. They call them FedEx Days. So they also realise that their staff, all these developers, have these great ideas, but they don't have time to work on them. So every quarter they do something called FedEx Days, where the developers get 24 hours to work on whatever they want and come up with some cool software, programming, whatever it is. And then the next day they have a huge party and everyone presents their ideas. And it's called FedEx Day because they have to deliver something overnight, and that's been fantastic for them. And a lot of the ideas that have come from that time out have been implemented. So again, just fantastic. So those are all things that you can do to carve out time inside the office. But I think the best ideas come from outside the office, and the best ideas don't come from when you're sitting at your desk or when you're in a brainstorm. They come from when you're out living your life and exposing yourself to new things. Here we have the Bondi Bronte Walk, and this is where you can find me daily. This is where I get my great ideas from. The Inspire Foundation recognised that they need to give people time out of the office, and so they do this really cool thing called the Reflection Week. And what happens is the staff member will have a meeting with the CEO and basically say, this is what I'm thinking of doing for Reflection Week. And they can pitch their idea of where they want to go. They can go anywhere for a week and immerse themselves in something for 1 week, but as long as they come back and then share their knowledge and experience with the rest of the staff, and they'll pay for the whole thing. And I think that's amazing. The company that I think has really done this the best is Patagonia. So Patagonia have a policy that if the surf is good, then you're allowed to leave the office and go surfing. How great is that? And Bon Durant, a 10-year Patagonian veteran, says, "The time we spend outside of the office helps us manage the storytelling process around our products. We're designing ski and surfing apparel. We need to be traveling and trying things out." So, yeah, really important. The number one time saver, and I know this from personal experience, is having a brainstorm toolkit. So many of my clients, I say to them, how are your brainstorms? Are they effective? They say, we often have to have 2 brainstorms because the first one we didn't quite nail it. And if you have a divergent thinking or brainstorm toolkit, then it makes it so much faster. So a little bit of a shameless plug for me. That's what I do. I've got an open course coming up in February. If anyone is interested, come and see me afterwards, and we can chat about if you want to get in and do that course with me. But having tools and techniques for creativity and brainstorming is fantastic and really worthwhile. So at the beginning of the talk, I started by telling you guys about the physical environment and showing you all those crazy Google offices and the Facebook office and, the office set behind the waterfall. But you don't need all that stuff in order to have a creative office, and there's some very, very simple things you can do. So if you are a leader or a manager, one of the things you can do is watch where people congregate. The best ideas, like I said, are not happening in the brainstorm, but they're those offline chats that people have. So if you see that people are congregating in the kitchen area, put some chairs and a table there, actually encourage that. IDEO actually rebuilt their staircase to make it wider so that people between floors would actually have those offline chats in the staircase. Some friends of mine own an agency in New York, and they realised that in their meetings, people were sitting around the boardroom table and clients were sitting around the table being very stiff, didn't feel like a great environment for creativity. So they simply removed the boardroom table. They just took it out of the room. And now when clients are in there, they're sitting around on couches and everyone's relaxed. And they said that the ideas that come out of those meetings are so much better and the difference is so noticeable. So all they did was remove the table. So you don't have to spend millions of dollars to have a really super creative workplace. It's just watching where people are, and sometimes it's what you remove that counts. So the last point I want to talk about today is about diversity. Has that ever happened to anybody? So this is me back in 2008, coming to work dressed in exactly the same outfit as a guy called Han, who was one of our art directors. And it was very funny. We got lots of photo shoots, done that day. And but why does that happen, right? And I want to talk about teams. So teams are really interesting. You spend more time with your team at work than you do with your actual family, if you think about the hours in the week. That's kind of scary. And so what happens is we highly influence each other. And we like the same stuff, we start liking the same music, we start going to the same places, and that's great. But the thing that is so crucial for creativity is diversity, okay? Having people with different backgrounds. If you're hiring for creativity, if you're hiring people, make sure you hire people with different backgrounds and different skill. Yes, it still has to be a cultural fit, but that's just such an important thing to do. And also encourage what I call cross-pollination. So, getting different departments together. Like so often we have different departments in the workplace and we don't even know what they do. And they've got these amazing skills. So as a leader, bring these different departments together and encourage, when you're having a brainstorm, make sure you bring in people from other departments that are naive to your challenge. That really helps. An agency in New York called People, Ideas and Culture, or PIC, have this very cool thing that they call the wall. And literally it's a wall that's up in the agency. Every single time they get a new brief, the brief gets stuck up on the wall, and that means it's in possibility mode. And anyone in the agency can come up to the wall and look and see, what the brief is. They've got avatars that show who's working on the brief. So you know that if you've got an idea, you can go up to that person and say, hey, I saw you're working on this brief and I've got a fantastic idea for you. Or you can write your idea up on the wall. So that's been fantastic for them. The Human Rights Commission noticed that, they've got all these different departments and that people didn't really know each other. And, I have friends who work in office buildings and they don't even know the person that sits next to them. I think that is absolutely crazy. So the Human Rights Commission realised that, people were, they kind of knew each other, but they didn't really know each other. And so they organised a mass speed dating for the whole commission. And everyone came together and, they had to ask each other questions about what department are in, what you do. But who are you as a person? And that's really important, that really matters. So I want to end on, talking about this quote here. I saw this a while ago and it really struck a chord with me. It says, creativity is between us, not within us. And so a lot of the time we're focused on individual creatives and individual people and their skills. But as leaders, where the magic happens is when you actually get people together. So this picture here is of a 17th century Parisian salon. And what used to happen in those days is you'd get all these incredible people, like authors and writers and philosophers, artists. These people in the society would come together and they would debate and discuss ideas. And as a leader, I think what our job is to create modern day Parisian salons where we actually get people to come together and discuss and debate ideas. And that, I think, is crucial and will be fantastic in setting up a really great creative environment in your workplace. So Very quickly, to recap in 11 steps, creativity is for everyone. That's a belief you need to have. You need to nurture their neoteny, the childlike quality in everybody. You need to provide platforms for people to contribute their creative ideas. You need to recognise people for their great ideas, not with money. Allow a safe place for failure. Provide regular and instant feedback, especially for creative work. Carve out time for creative thinking and make it habitual. Get your people out of the office, that's where the best ideas come from. Get a toolkit for brainstorming. Assess the environment and see if the environment in your workplace is conducive to creativity. And lastly, encourage diversity and collaboration in teams. So guys, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you today. Thanks.